Hello, welcome to Red's channel. Today's topic is the BMW F900XR 2025. The pretext, as with every other new release unveiled at the end of 2025, is the arrival of the Euro. In this case, BMW has taken advantage of the new anti-pollution regulations to update colors and technical equipment, meeting what were ultimately some of the market's demands. While absolutely recognizable and seemingly unchanged, the F900XR has actually received a small makeover, giving a nod to both sportiness and comfort. Because while it's true that the rear area is shorter, more compact and sportier, it's equally true that the front part gains more protection, thanks to the deflectors, here on the side of the fairing, a different fairing, and the standard handguards. No mechanical changes regarding the engine, as the parallel twin-cylinder confirms all its fundamental specifications. 895 cubic centimeters, 105 horsepower at 8,500 RPM and 93 Nm at 6,750 RPM. However, there is something new, besides the homologation, of course. BMW has worked on the throttle response to make the engine more responsive to the right wrist's inputs, a task mainly carried out in the dynamic riding mode. More interesting, in fact, are the innovations concerning the chassis. First of all, because when the weight goes down, it's always a good thing. And on the XR, the weight has been reduced by 3 kilos with the focus on the wheels. It's easy to understand that BMW aims to be more agile and more responsive, even in handling. The rest of the weight savings, now we're at 216 kilo ready to ride, comes from the battery, which is almost 1 kilo lighter, exactly 1 kilo. Another important update to the chassis concerns the fork, which finally gains hydraulic and preload adjusters. The first ones are adjustable even without tools. This new fork solution is something I'm curious to check out, because the fork, which was not very supportive and non-adjustable, was somewhat the weak point of the previous version of the F900XR. Among the features to note are the ABS Pro and LED headlights with cornering function and heated grips, all of which are standard.
The starting price? I must say that it's really a low price. BMW, it starts at 12,295 euros. However, the bike we are testing is practically a fully equipped bike, and the price therefore rises to 14,110 euros.
Okay, we are on the saddle of the F900XR. Let's see what lies ahead when you get on the renewed BMW crossover. First of all, you see the control point is very similar to that of the old one. In fact, I would say it's the same, but then there's a USB-C port on the right, and the instrumentation is the classic 6.5-inch one from BMW. Obviously, with the menu button, you can access various configurations and also change the type of instrumentation. With the Sport one, it also shows you the CO traction control intervention level, brake pressure, and lean angles. Let's return to the traditional setup. Let's say here it is. By pressing up on the top strip, you see that the numbers change, providing all the necessary information during the journey. BMW's instrument is always of high quality. I must say, it's always easy to read. It's never difficult to read, even when the sun is shining, with the necessary information, always clear and readable in the right places. And the proverbial joystick. Here, there is no sandwich menu like the GS provisional joystick that manages everything. Mappings are changed with the mode button on the handlebar. There are 4: rain, road, and dynamic. By going into the configuration, of course, you can also set up the various mappings, as you can see here. There is also the Dynamic Pro, which can be activated and then seen on the menu. You can then turn on or off the mappings you want to see, which you need to access very quickly from our menu, from our mode button. Now that I have activated the Dynamic Pro, as you can see, an additional option will appear at the top. There are always 4, however, that can be seen. So in the case of a bike with more mappings like Enduro Pro, you can activate 4 and turn off the others. This is the adjustment button for the ISA suspension, which works, as we know, only on the rear. At the front, the novelty is the adjustable fork, which in this case has the butterfly knobs, typical of Showa forks, allowing you to adjust rebound and compression without tools, practically. However, to adjust the preload, you obviously need the key. As I was saying, the ISA works only on the rear shock absorber, where you can choose between 2 mappings, dynamic or road, and you can even change it, if not the type of load. So you can also decide to choose the preload level, which can be set for a solo rider, solo with luggage 2 up. More or less, this is everything you see from BMW. The novelty, I repeat, is the adjustable fork, which wasn't there before, present, which somewhat addresses what was a bit of a limitation of the F900XR. Let's go try it out. Let's see how it goes.
Almost finished testing the F900XR 2025 edition. Let's go in order because there's something to say about this bike. It's a bike you will remember. It was also featured in our 2023 crossover comparison and will probably be a key player in another comparison very soon along with its natural competitors. But the evolution that BMW wanted to give to this bike is, in my opinion, going in the right direction, because it's a bike that always remains, let's say, at the suspension level. On the comfortable side, however, the fork was a bit of a weak point for the bike. We had mentioned it during the comparison as well. A fork that doesn't follow what the shock absorber does. When you go to stiffen the suspensions with the dynamic ESA that is present here, so you might go to give more preload in order to try to have more support, more rigidity. The non-adjustable fork of the previous version couldn't manage. Let's say to follow the setup a bit. In this case, however, with the new adjustable fork, even without playing too much with the adjustments, the starting setup is already more balanced. In the sense that the bike now stays a bit more parallel to the ground, experiences fewer sudden dives. There's a bit of speed. I must say that I'm not someone who brakes very aggressively, so a fork that dives a bit quickly, it doesn't bother me. However, more than anything, I had found the rebound to be a bit too quick, which I quickly adjusted using the knob on top of the fork, closing 4 clicks of rebound. The fork is quite sensitive. Maybe you shouldn't just give it 1 click, but more than 1. However, it did slow down a bit and immediately felt better to me. I started right away with the chassis because, in my opinion, obviously it's the part where the F900XR has changed the most, because even changing the wheels, obviously with 1 kilogram less, is like switching from regular wheels to forged wheels. Practically, it has brought benefits in terms of driving dynamics, speed, entry, cornering, and changes of direction. So it's a bike that has become a bit sharper when you push it while riding. I was saying the bike remains beautiful, parallel to the ground when it really starts to push. And at this point, the fork allows you to do so. Perhaps I would trick the shock absorber a bit by preloading it a little, setting it to person plus luggage. This allows you to raise the rear a bit more, sharpen the front a little, and be even quicker. Why the bike? Otherwise it remains a bit low. I must say that I liked the chassis this time, and since I'm talking about the chassis, I'll also talk about the brakes. The front is good, I liked it in terms of bite, pressure point, adjustable lever. In short, I like it. For the rear, I report what I had noted once again when we did the comparison. The free travel is too long and the pressure point is a bit too low. And so for me, it's a little annoying because it's one of the things I would have liked to be improved on the F900XR. The engine, on the other hand, has remained essentially unchanged. But as I noted when I tested the F900R, this 900 in the Euro 5 edition, more in reality has made some progress because the riding mode mappings have also been redefined. So specifically in the dynamic map, where there's more punch, in the initial response, there's no off, absolutely. But now the engine responds more decisively. There's a more direct connection. Throttle response compared to before is a bit less filtered, which gives the 270-degree twin-cylinder engine a bit more character and slightly improves its sporty temperament, something that, as you may recall, we had pointed out with the F900XR. It did everything well, but it lacked a bit of character. Now, in my opinion, in the dynamic mode, that character has arrived. Nothing over the top, though, but I must say, there's that little bit of extra verve that doesn't hurt. Also because now, I repeat, with the chassis and the fork, you can see that it's a proper fork. In short, it's a higher level compared to the previous one. With lighter wheels, there's more dynamism, no? And if there's also a bit more engine, you understand that the bike is moving in the direction of sportiness. An engine that is really very flexible. it goes down to 2000 RPM without knocking, without hesitating. And in this, BMW is known to be a master. It has a nice low end, especially now with the dynamic map and also a good stretch. Even though above 6500 RPM vibrations occur, handlebars, foot pegs. In short, you can feel that the twin cylinder is pumping. However, these revs are not often reached when riding at a constant speed, because at the 130 km/h, this motorcycle runs at 5000 RPM. Continuing with the engine, I'll talk about the gearbox, which I found to be somewhat the same. In short, it's similar to what we found in other times we've tested it. The F900XR, a bit resistant, especially when downshifting. The neutral, sometimes it's a bit difficult to find it. You have to go from second to first. It's a bit of a struggle. But when you use it with the clutch, the gearbox works very well, and the quick shifter cut times, in my opinion, are interesting and very effective. But when downshifting, well, it's a bit hard to understand when you've engaged the gear properly. Valid ergonomics. Nothing has essentially changed compared to before. The adjustable windshield with one hand is good in terms of aerodynamic protection. Not bad, I must say. With the windshield even in the lowered position, in my opinion, it provides good protection for someone of my height. So more or less, when you go to race it, the protection is valid. It's quite wide even at the top, so the shoulders also remain protected. And these two little wings that have been added to the fairing, indeed a bit of air, they take it away from your torso. Big help this morning when it was cold, the handguards, which are now standard. Another thing I would have liked to see changed is the seat, because in this configuration, which is the standard configuration, it is really very stiff. It has very firm padding, very sporty. I would understand such a seat on the sport configuration of this bike, which also has the small windscreen, short. But on this bike that is designed for traveling. Therefore, moreover, these small deflectors which have been added have also improved the aerodynamic protection. Here I would perhaps like a seat that is a bit more comfortable. There is the comfort seat, which you can get as an option, but perhaps for me it should be standard equipment. Speaking further about the suspension, I add that the ISA is, I liked it because in the two settings, road and dynamic, it works well. They are quite distinct. It always leans a bit towards comfort, so there is a basic softness in the suspension's operation that I like. Thank you. The only thing I need to point out is that when a sharp impact occurs, so at very high speed, the shock absorber transmits the impacts a bit, so it struggles a little more to absorb quick hits, like those from potholes or manhole covers. So what can we say about the F900? XR remains true to the original XR project, so it is truly the little sister of the S1000 XR, especially regarding the driving dynamics, which have become faster. Sharper, it has become more refined in this configuration. As you can see, it is equipped with Michelin Road 6 GT tires, which I find a somewhat curious combination because it's not a 250 kilogram bike, so they have fitted a tire with an additional ply, which is intended to equip, for example, the RT models. However, I tried another one with Continental Road Attack 4 tires, and I must say I liked it a lot. I must also say that this one works well with this type of tires. There is a bit of extra speed on the front Michelin, but a slightly higher lift-up effect when entering a curve with the brake applied, but of course these are personal preferences. So the F900XR stays somewhat true to the original project. It has received the upgrade that perhaps was necessary to make, especially in terms of aerodynamic protection, especially to compete with the new competitors that have entered the market, like the Tracer Sport 800 and the new Tracer. So what to say about the F900XR? I have to say that it truly lives up to the XR name. Indeed, it really does. The little sister of the S1000XR. It is positioned slightly more sportily and dynamically in terms of chassis. It remains a bike with which you can take long trips. What could be improved? Certainly the brake lever travel and the seat, which I would definitely like to be a bit softer. That's pretty much everything I dreamed of here. From the first contact with the BMW F900XR, here around the outskirts of Rome. It was truly a first contact because it's been a somewhat hectic day. We also tried the REI. You'll find the video on the channel. So we did some riding, some curves, just to get the first impressions. We will definitely talk about this bike again because you'll see that it will be featured in some other comparisons. For me, that's really everything. It's time to go home.
please subscribe to the channel below. I'll be waiting for you in the comments. There will always be something to discuss, to talk about, to chat, because our comments are a bit like the sports bar, and so they're also fun. Reading and talking with you, in short, is always also instructive. In a way, I'll see you in the next video. And I'd say that's all. Goodbye.